Hey, this is Nate, and welcome back to New Compass Collectibles. Today we're going to be looking at ComicLink auction data again. We're going to be looking at Session 2 data from the featured auction, which is ComicLink's big quarterly auction that wrapped up earlier this month. And let's go ahead and just look at those numbers. We have just a short video today. I already looked at the Session 1 data in a prior video. I'll link that up above, but just to recap the numbers that we saw there. 400 lots, $3.5 million in sales. So all the big books are in Session 1. Average of 5.5% down in that auction. So that was a larger than normal drop that I've been seeing in the market lately. Typical results I've seen in like the Heritage Weekly auctions have been about 3% down on the weekly results. So this auction with all the big books was over 5% decline compared to comparable sales. So weak results in that Session 1 auction. This is another view at the comparable sales from Session 1. Again, just a reminder of what we talked about in more depth in that first video. 5.5% down, and this is the scatter plot that I used to look at to compare recent sales to the auction results that we're analyzing. Looking at the same data now for Session 2, we have more lots. This is a bigger portion of the auction, but it's usually more affordable books relative to Session 1 at least. And 1.4 million in sales. I'm looking at 1,571 individual comic book auction results in this data. Of those 1,571 sales, I have 656 items that I was able to find comparable sales data for. Those are sales in the same grade in the last 12 months. For those comparisons, an average of 2.55% decline compared to recent sales. So better than the Session 1 auctions. You know, these lower price books held their value a bit better than the higher price books. Looking at that chart of the overall sales by comic age, this was actually a lot of Silver Age books, some Golden Age too, and Bronze Age, but yeah, Silver and Bronze were the highest representation here in terms of age. The highest sales were actually in the Silver Age as well, so an average of $517 per sale for those 592 books in the Silver Age. Looking at the comparisons, this is just another view of it. Interesting here that there are a few dots above this dashed line, so that shows some sales that were actually stronger than most recent comps that I could find. So that's, I guess, a little bit of a difference compared to other data sets that I've seen, actually seeing some stronger sales in this auction, but in general, still weaker sales across the board with 2.5% decline on average. Looking at the historical value of the auction catalog, so if this auction catalog had sold in prior weeks, what would the estimated value have been? And that peaks in 2021 in September at an estimated value of $1.2 million. Again, this is a subset of the data that I'm analyzing from the ComicLink auction. It's all data that I had recent sales for in the last 12 months and that I could find historical sales for at least 5 years old. So that gives us an estimate of the trends of the data over time. So the sales in this recent auction were $716,000. That's marked by the pink cross on the right-hand side. And those same books would have sold in 2021 for an estimated $1.2 million. But the trends from the last 6 months or so do seem pretty flat. So maybe we're seeing sort of a bottoming pattern forming here in this market data, at least in this case. The dotted line sort of in the middle here is the low in the trend. So the low is $722,000, and that was back in July of 2024. So for this auction catalog, it's indicating that the lows would have been in July, although the sales from this auction were $716,000. So that does represent a new low in this data, but pretty flat overall trend in the last 6 months or so. And here we're just looking at the top 5 sales by age. So I like to highlight these just because the ComicLink data doesn't get recorded or pulled into many of the pricing services. So a lot of times that data just gets lost. So capturing it here just for reference. One thing that I do want to highlight out of these sales is the Incredible Hulk 181 in the 9.8 selling for $57,000. So if you remember, in the session 1 data, we had a really interesting high sale for Incredible Hulk 181. And now we're seeing another data point for that book selling for $57,000. Let's go ahead and just look at those two auctions side by side to compare. So if you remember from session 1, we had this 181 and a 9.8 selling for $125,000. Now, we talked at the time about how that was an exceptionally high sale. I don't really see any justification for a high price tag on this book. And now we're seeing confirmation of that here with the recent sale of the 9.8 for $57,000. This is just a week later, so selling on March 4th. The $125,000 sale was on February 27th. So after just a week, we had another 9.8 come up for sale and sold for less than half the price of the prior week. And finally, we'll wrap things up by just looking at the number of sales by title. So these are all the sales for every age combined into one chart. Looking at the modern age only, the highest number of sales was Spider-Man and X-Men. In the Bronze Age, we had Incredible Hulk and Tomb of Dracula at the top of this list. Silver Age, Spider-Man Showcase, Incredible Hulk. And in the Golden Age, the highest selling books were Action Comics, Superman, Detective Comics, and Planet Comics. So pretty typical set of books here that we see at the top of these lists, which is expected in the ComicLink auctions. When you have so many books, most of the popular books are going to be represented there. Lastly, we're going to just look at the sales by title. Nothing really stood out here as being too unusual, so I'll go through these pretty quickly, but overall sales by title, Amazing Spider-Man at the top of the list. Breaking it down by ages, we have in the modern age, Spider-Man and X-Men had a number of sales in this auction. In the Bronze Age, we had Incredible Hulk and Tomb of Dracula at the top of the list. In the Silver Age, Spider-Man again, but then followed by Showcase and Incredible Hulk. And in the Golden Age, we see all of the typical books that you would expect to be popular: Action Comics, Superman, Detective Comics, and Planet Comics, all at the top of the list in the Golden Age for the Session 2 auction of ComicLink's featured auction for February and March 2025. And that's all the data I had to look at today. Just a quick video to wrap up our analysis on the ComicLink auction from last month. There's another ComicLink auction going on that'll be wrapping up pretty soon in the next couple of weeks, and we'll look at that data when that comes available as well. And go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel so that you can get more auction analysis content. Appreciate you sticking with me to the end of the video here, and I'll see you again in the next one.